start unpicking the skirt. Here's one layer, the next layer, the next layer, and then the waistband, which is another layer. Alright, so here we have our first layer. And there's about 3 fabrics in this one. So I'm just thinking we could always separate each layer so that it's singular. And let's move on to the next layer. Here we have our second layer, and again it's got 3 layers within the one. Next layer. So here's the zip, so we're just going to have to be a bit careful. I don't know if you can see the invisible zip there. We're just going to detach it from the zip. Detach, detach, detach. Alright, and here we have our third. Yeah, so this is our third layer. Now it's left with our final one, which was the waistband. So again, we're just going to detach it from invisible zip here. We're just going to detach it. Leaves the final layer, which was the waistband. I'm just going to start pinning it to the mannequin. I've done this waistband to my own measurement and it fits me at my high waist. So just want to separate some of these layers so that there's more to work with. I'm going to cut it. Alright, so pretty much just cutting it at the seam. I'm just going to cut on the overlocking. I should be doing this on the table, but it's a bit hard to film, so I'm kind of just doing it freely by hand. Don't mind me, but pretty much just following the overlocking guide as a guideline. Alright, so now that that's done, I'm just separating the layers. I'm just gonna start experimenting with what it could potentially look like, because I really like this flouncy shape that it has. So if I just keep layering it, then it possibly will look as how I want it to look. I was just thinking we could hook it up like that, right? And start making an asymmetric kind of pattern happening. Do with this is I want to add in like a bunch of gathering. The next step that I want to do is add in the last piece that we have. So that's the final look. It's so cute! So obviously the back I'll clean up a bit better. So now it's time to do the lining for this upper piece here. So using the lining that we had from the pattern skirt, I'm just going to flip it upside down where it's the straight edge and kind of use the pattern piece here, follow this guideline. So just pinning it all the way. So there we have it so far. I think it fits perfectly around the hem of the skirt lining, which is really perfect. Alright, so now that we've gotten that all the way across, let's just place it back on here. And what we're going to do this time is draw in where we're going to stick this fabric. Just getting a closer up of where we're cutting, because now we're just going to connect the second layer of the pattern flounce. Where we're connecting it will be the lining, which will be obviously much shorter because we don't want any of this showing. So in doing that, we're just going to cut at these guidelines here, which is a straight line. If you can see through the dotted lines here. Alright, so now that we've cut off this excess fabric from the lining, let's just take that away. What we're going to do next is attach the second flounce piece onto the other side of the lining. So let's just start pinning against what we have. Just keep going all the way to the end, and then we can start sewing. So I've just pinned around the whole way through of the second lining end that we just cut. Now we're ready to sew. Okay, so what we have here is we're just going to sew this top edge of the flounce to the lining. So I'm just going to do it at 0.5 centimeters. so now that that's done, let's go ahead and sew the second layer. Now that we've gone all the way around, we're gonna have to start binding this edge. But before we bind the edge, I need to attach the strap, which will become the halter neck. So kind of getting where the middle of the drawstring is, we're gonna fold this drawstring into half and then sew that halfway mark. Here I've got one of the middle part. I've just used where the seam shows. And we're just gonna sew it down at 1/2 centimeter. So now that that's done, we're gonna start doing the binding. So what I'm gonna do is just put pins around the binding. This one's not sateen, but I think it's something like probably cotton. I'm gonna put it all the way around. Probably better that it's not sateen. What we do with the ends is that when you reach the end, you got to fold it in half. That way once you flip it over, it's a clean finish rather than having an exposed edge. Alright, so what we're going to do is start sewing at 1/2 centimeter. Next, we're just going to overlock the exposed edges from that second layer. Right, what we're going to do now is essentially draw in the line in which we're going to cut through on that original waistband. So now that we've got that, let's go get the waistband separated. And because there's just so much access that we're going to get from these flounce pieces, we're just going to do them stitched on multiple foldings. So you can see here, that's where we're going to cut that black line. So what I'm going to do is just cut down the seam like what we did before. I'm just doing it where the seam is already existing. So right now what I'm doing is attaching one of the 2 layers of the print flounce piece to the waistband, and I'm just doing it all the way around. What we're going to do now is sew that waistband ruffles in which I showed you just before. So starting on the very edge, let's just do it at 1 centimeter seam allowance. So after sewing the waistband section, so what happens now is that we are going to have to snip the center backs of each of these. Alright, so now that we've got the bottom part of the skirt done, we are ready to sew it to the waistband. So now that we've got the waistband, I'm just going to start pinning it to the layers of the bottom skirt. And then now that we're getting to the side of the skirt, I'm just going to start doing a bit of gathering, just a tiny bit. The bottom skirt to the waistband. So starting by 1 centimeter seam allowance, we're going to sew all the way across. Okay, so what we're doing now is attaching the zip onto the center back